Today you're going to learn how to dry mount your 4 pinhole images to a piece of cardstock. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to go over a couple of the tools, the process, and what you're going to need to do with that. All right, so bear with me, and we'll go over the supplies next. Heading into the darkroom to mount, you're going to need your 4 pinhole images. I stole these out of the print claim. Nobody claimed them, so I'm going to mount them. You're going to need a pencil, and you're going to need your mounting sheet that I gave you. If you don't have this, it's up front. All right. And also, I'm going to pick up the camera here. When you get into the darkroom, you're going to see an enlarger number 7. There's going to be the cardstock in a box. All right. You're going to see a little cardboard box filled with white sheets of paper. And if you actually touch them, they actually feel waxy, and we'll talk about this in a second. This is the adhesive. And you're also going to need a ruler, but we won't need that quite yet. All right. And so, once you have all those things, set yourself up at a station. So 2, 3, 4, 10, either one. You want to have a little space to work. You can also do this out in the outside, not in the dark room if you want to. Okay. So let's go over the tools that we're going to need in addition to just went over the supplies. Hey, it's camera on a stick. Camera on a stick. All right. At enlarger number 6 and at enlarger number 9, I have set up tacking irons. Okay, they're sitting on clipboards so that they don't cause a fire. If they're not plugged in, make sure that they're plugged in. Give them a couple minutes to heat up. They take about 5 minutes to heat up. It's nothing big. Don't touch them with your hands. They're about 200 degrees. Right, they're meant for your photographs. More specifically, they're meant for this little sheet of paper that you're going to get, and it's waxy. This is dry mount tissue. And what happens is when heat is applied to this, it becomes like glue. It is permanent. It is permanent for 100 years. So your photographs will be bonded to this board for about 100 years, which is around the same time that your photographs actually start to degrade. So that's a win-win scenario. The other equipment in the room that you're going to be using is something you've already been using. You're going to need your cutting board. All right. You might need a pair of scissors. And you're also going to be using this guy, which is sitting in the cart right here. This is the dry mount press. Right. So the tacking iron is meant to hold the dry mount tissue in place. The dry mount press is meant to keep everything secured. All right. So I'm going to turn off the video, and we're going to go over how to apply the dry mount tissue to your photographs. Welcome back. So let me take this for a second. I have vacuumed all of the enlarger stations so that there's no dust or crumbs. Right. Ideally, this is not set up in the darkroom, but instead over by the windows where the dry mount press, you might have seen it before, is located. The main reason for this is with presentation, you want to make sure everything is dust-free, everything is dry and clean. If you have any bit of dust and it gets sealed underneath the glue, you're going to have lumps coming through your photographs, and it's not going to look pretty. Archivals tend to wear white gloves just to make sure that everything is clean as possible. We won't need white gloves. And of course, this is your first mounting, so I know you're not going to ruin anything per se. It's about getting used to this, right? But I want you to realize that when you go for your big prints, you want to make sure everything is clean and dry because dust is your enemy in this case. All right, so here, let's get set up. Okay. So here I have my tacking iron. You'll notice that it's curved at the tip. It tapers, and that's all we're going to really need at the top is the tip. You're going to have your 4 photographs. I'm going to flip them upside down and put them on the table here. Your dry mount tissue, you're going to get from the box, and you're going to put your dry mount tissue on top of your 4 photographs. You want to make sure that the dry mount tissue actually overlaps the photograph, so nothing should be peeking out. If you feel like your photographs are too big for this piece of dry mount tissue and you can only fit on 2 at a time, then do that. Use 2 pieces of dry mount tissue, okay? But you want to have overlap. You don't want to leave anything behind. Otherwise, you'll have edges of your photographs peeling up. Okay, so I'm going to try to position these as close as possible. Let's see, and it might not work for this case, so I might actually have to use 2 sheets. So I'm going to use 2 sheets. I'm going to put these 2 up to the side. I'm going to put this guy on top like this. Right, this will actually make it easier for me to cut them apart. So, all right. So I have my dry mount tissue down, my 2 photographs, and I'm going to try my best so that you can see this, but it's going to be hard to see. So you can see my photographs through my dry mount tissue. I'm going to pick up my tacking iron, and I'm going to press the tacking iron straight down in the middle, leave it there for a second, and then drag up on the tip. Right. So you notice let me see if you can see this. It's like it melts it ever so slightly. It looks like hot glue is underneath. Right. So press it down in the middle and lift up, and that's all you need to get your photographs to stick to the dry mount tissue. Okay. So again, the tacking iron is only used for tacking purposes. It's not meant for gluing the whole thing down. All right. I'm going to pause this, and we're going to head on over to the cutting board. Okay. So we're over at the cutting board. This is your chance. If you don't like any of the borders on your photograph, this is your chance to cut them off. So in addition to trying to make the dry mount tissue the same size as the photograph, this is also your chance to crop. Right? This is also your chance to make sure that all your photographs are the same size, and you want all 4 of your photographs to be the same size. If they're not, you're going to have a really difficult time trying to mount them to the board. Okay, so if they are an odd size, you want to crop them all to the smallest photograph that you have. So if they're supposed to be 4x5 and one is 3x4, you now have to crop those 4x5s down to 3x4. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to get them started and how to make sure that they stay 90 degrees. So let's look at that. Okay. I'm going to cut my photographs out of the Drymount tissue by cutting it in half. So now I have my 2 pieces of Drymount tissue and photographs. I'm going to put this one off to the side. My first cut, I'm going to stick my photograph through, and I'm going to line it up with the side of the cutter. And that's hard to see, but I'm going to show this to see if I can get you guys to see this. Lining the edge of the photograph up with the cutter. This is to verify that the first cut will be straight. Even if it's crooked, this one will be straight, and all the preceding cuts will be made straight because this one, sorry guys, is the first cut. All right, so here we go. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to make sure I get this straight. And you can use this cutter or you can use the one in the room. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and now I'm going to line up that edge that I just cut with the top of the cutter. Right, so this keeps it straight at 90 degrees. This is now your time to be creative with your cuts. All right, here we go. It's pressed up against the top. I have it sticking up just a little bit. And cut. Rotate 90 degrees. Line it up with the top. And cut. Rotate 90 degrees. Line it up with the edge. And cut. So now this photograph is perfectly square or rectangular. All right, there's no odd edge. All right, you can throw your scraps in the trash. So you're gonna do this for all 4 of your photographs, or the additional 3. All right, so all 4 are gonna be cut like this. So one more time, line up the edge for the initial cut, right up to the metal, and cut. That's really hard to see from your angle. Rotate 90 degrees, line up with the top, and cut. Now, the other cutters out there, because this is going to take some time, and with this whole process, you want to take time. Because again, once you mount it, and it's heated activated, and it's bonded to that board, you will not get it off. The only way to remove the photograph from the board is to cut the photograph out. Alright, so this one's cut. I'm going to do that for the other 2. So I'll see you. One more thing I forgot. Once you're cutting these, your second piece, you want to measure all of your other preceding photographs to the first one. So you can use the ruler at the top of the cutting board, right there, to measure your pieces. This is my second sheet. I'm lining up and cutting in half so I can get them cut. So this first photograph, see how they line up. All right, so I got a little bit of an edge at the bottom. So I'm going to measure to the smaller one. So this is 1/8 shorter than 5, and this is 2/8 shorter than 4. All right, so 1/8 shorter than 5, 2/8 shorter than 4 for mine, and I'm going to crop all the preceding ones to that. You just finished cutting all 4. You want to make sure that they're all the same size. Put them all together, and make sure everything is nice and smooth. You should see that the tissue is aligned with the photograph. Nothing should be sticking out. Okay. Once you seal this, if any of the Drymount tissue is sticking out from the photograph, it'll seal and you'll end up with this like clear highlight around the photograph. So you don't want that. Make sure everything's even. Okay. Next, you're going to need your formula sheet. You want to have your 4 photographs. You're going to grab a ruler. I like the clear ones because they actually have a T-square on it. And you're going to need your pencil. And you're going to grab yourself a piece of the cardstock. Okay. So we're measuring our photographs. Oh, look, it's like an infinity here. All right, you're measuring your photographs so that they fit on here like a grid. The final thing is going to look something like this. Okay. When we measure them, we're going to measure the height of the top right and the height of the bottom right, and you're going to measure the width of the top right and the width of the top left. Okay. So you're trying to add these 2 together, and we're measuring both of these photographs because even though we know that we cut them at the right size, we want to double check. So with this, measure twice and mount once. You're going to use fractions for this. It keeps everything uniform. So the rulers are set up in 16ths. Of course, the half mark is going to be 8/16ths, so it keeps things interesting. So this, using inches, is actually, my cutter was a little off, is 3 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12/16ths. 3 and 12/16ths by 4 and 14/16ths. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. Take measurements for the height of the first one. 3 and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 sixteenths. 3 and 12 sixteenths. And I'm going to double check, this one's also the same one. 3 and 12 sixteenths. Measure the width of the top one. 4 and 16, 8, I'm sorry, 14 sixteenths. I must have cut off more than I thought I did. And this should be 4 and, double check, 4 and 14 sixteenths. Okay, so now, sorry guys, that's trying not to make you too motion sick. So you're going to add these two together, you're going to add these two together, and that'll give you the picture height and the picture width. You're going to add a ½ inch separation between the photographs, and that'll give you the total height and the total width. Okay, so we're adding a ½ inch because right now, as it goes for the picture height and picture width, that is the measurement as if I were putting my photographs up like this, right, touching. But we want to have a nice little border in between, and ½ inch is a nice size. If you want to do more, just change ½ inch to an inch, or if you need more space, I wouldn't go anything lower than a ¼ of an inch because you want to have enough room for your photographs to breathe. Okay, so I'm going to do the math, and I'll get back to you in a second. So my total height is 8 inches by 10 and 4/16, which is 10 1/4. Okay. So now I'm going to write down the height and width of your mat. The mat board is 11 by 14. Now I left these marks here in case you decide to change the size of your mat board, but it's easier just to keep things the way it is. So my height is 11, my width is 14. All right, so my mat width is going to become 14, and my picture width was 10 and 1/4 inches. All right, which makes this 3 3/4. All right, and then you divide 3 3/4 by 2, so that we're trying to find what is the distance for the line on both sides of the board. So this gives us our total mat width, and then I'm going to find out what it is on each side. So 3 3/4 divided in half would be mat height 11, picture height 8. So 11 minus 8 is 3. Right, and this one's easier. 3 divided by 2 is 1, 1.5. Now I'm going to come over here. Now that I know that my width is 1 and 14/16, so that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right, I'm going to draw a line, and you only need a light pencil line. You don't want to go too heavy. If you go heavy, remember you got to erase these lines. So if you go heavy, it's going to be more trouble to erase. So let me hold this here, and I'm going to draw my line straight down. So the cool thing about the T-squares is you only have to mark once for coming out. So here I marked the line, and then I rotate it 90 degrees, and I put it up top and line it up with the line, and then draw my line. So this keeps everything straight. If you're not using a T-square, you want to make 2 pencil marks. All right. So for the top, I need to have 1.5. So 1.5, I come down right there. All right, and I'll rotate my T-square, line it up with my line. And we want to have, more importantly than the straight line across, is the corner. Okay, that is where you're going to put the corner of your photographs when you're done. Lightly pencil drawing. I'll come over here. Come in, so we want 1 and 14/16 right here. Right, from above. Right, so I'm going to do this for all the sides, and I'll come back to you in a second. Earthquake! So now I have my border put into my photographs, and now I can actually decide where I want to put my photos in terms of visual weight. So when I say that, I mean to say that you can put them in an order where when you lay them out in the grid, they visually are uniform and they go in a circle. They keep the eye moving. Right? So even though they're individual photographs, we want to look at all 4 photographs. Okay? So this one's got a lot of weight in terms of the light, and this has a lot of similarities to this one over here down at the bottom. So there's a diagonal parallel. And this one, I just realized, is upside down. So this goes this way. Right, and that also has weight on the corner, and we got some down here. So now this looks visually rather appealing, all 4 together. Okay? So I'm going to take this. If you're working outside, you want to come back into the darkroom, because now we're going to use the tacking iron. You're going to align your photographs to the corner lines. All right, so this one goes here, and for the top right, it goes to the top right corner, the bottom left corner. I'm sorry, this is the bottom right, and this is the bottom left. Okay. Now, you're going to have to erase these lines, but sneaky trick, if you line your photographs just a little bit over the line, you don't have to erase that part of the line. Sneaky. So now that I have it lined up, again, make sure everything is straight before you use the tacking iron. Once you put it down, it's stuck. So I'm going to lift up on the photograph, make sure the Drymount is sticking, or is touching the board. Okay. I want to go over my line just a little bit so I don't have to erase that part. A little bit further. So be sure about this. Take your time. It's okay to take your time with this. Lift up the side get your tacking iron, and you're just going to touch the side of the photograph there and drag out, and now my photograph is stuck there. All right, so I'm going to do this for all the outsides. I only need to do on the left and right on the outside. So this one's my top. All right, now that I have all four tacked, still very carefully, I get paranoid. You want to take the photos that you have now on your sheet, and we're going to take this over to the Drymount press. Okay, so here we are at the Drymount press. I got my photograph. We're going to lift up on the handle. This is like a giant panini maker here. Okay, don't be touching this too much. I'm just gently touching this, but it's actually quite hot. We have it set up to about almost 200 degrees. So make sure the temperature gauge says it's about 200 degrees. If you come in and it's not on, the on-off switch is right here on the top. Okay, you should see it's a white button. Make sure it turns on. Power light will be red. Lift up on the handle and push it back. Okay, and then you're going to have two boards already inside. One's a brown one and one's a white one. Okay. You're going to take the brown board out, put your photograph in on top of the white board. You're going to put this brown board back on top. This is going to allow pressure on top of the photographs. So double check, look underneath the brown board, make sure everything's flat. Always double check everything before you actually do this. All right. The brown board is also going to absorb some of the heat. You only want to do this for about 30 seconds because if you do it for longer, you can start to make your prints warp. For resin coated, 30 seconds is a good test time. Anything longer, and you can start to get rippling in the photographs. If you're using fiber-based paper, which I know some of our students are using it, you can actually do it almost indefinitely. It's paper. So I'm going to close the press, close the handle all the way down. You're going to hear a click. All right, look at your clock. We're going to do this for 30 seconds, and then we're going to pull it out and take a look at it. So 30 seconds. Okay, so it's time to open this up. I'll lift straight up on the handle and push it back. Okay, and go ahead and get your board. Pull your prints out slowly. To test that this has worked, we're going to flex on the board. And if you see any of the edges come up, and see how the edge is coming up, that means it needs to go in for a little longer. So we're going to take this, put it back into the press. It's always better to do a little bit under, just in case you burn something. So we're going to put it in for another 20 seconds or so. Okay. Now we're going to cover this back up. Take it back up. All right, and that's looking a lot better. If I give it a little flex, none of my edges are coming up. If your board curls a little bit, that's okay. That's some of the moisture coming out of the board. All right, but it's sort of natural because the board is so thin. Normally we're mounting on something a little thicker, but there's something apropos about mounting pinhole camera images, images made from cardboard, and mounting it on cardboard. Okay, so here they are. Here's my final work. And to really make this an artist piece of work, you're able to sign on the bottom. So you can sign on the bottom left-hand side your name. Make sure you erase your lines and write your name on the back. All right. So this is now frame-worthy. When I put this into a frame and hang it up on the wall, this is now ready for that. Okay. So notice how I have my half inches in between, and this is all done to my math. So we're art, but we're also math, and we're also science. Thanks for watching, and take care, guys. Have a good one. So this is presentation. Presentation is over now, and you can close the video. Bing. Hey, one more thing. When you're done with the Drymount press, make sure you put it back down for the next person. This thing uses a lot of power and to keep itself hot, and when you leave it up, you're letting all the heat out. So put it back down so the other person doesn't have to cook it for so long. Jeez, gosh. Okay, so now the presentation mode is over. This is the presentation, and now it's over. Second time. Pretty, 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 pretty. This is the song that never